If people don't feel your words, they won't follow your voice. That one truth changes everything about communication. Most people talk to be heard. Leaders talk to be remembered. The difference isn't in volume. It's in precision, clarity, strength, and timing. If your voice isn't respected, your ideas won't matter. If your words don't hold weight, your presence won't lead anyone. This audio book is your guide to building a voice that commands respect without needing to shout. A voice that creates action without needing to impress. A voice that speaks to people's minds and moves their decisions. You don't need big words. You need strong ones. You don't need to talk more. You need to talk better. Think about the leaders you respect. The people whose words you remember years later. The voices that changed how you think, how you act, how you see yourself. What made them different? It wasn't their vocabulary. It wasn't their accent. It wasn't even always what they said. It was how they said it. It was the certainty behind their words, the weight in their tone, the clarity in their message. They spoke like every word mattered, because to them it did. And when you heard them, you knew they believed what they were saying. You felt it. And because they believed it, you started to believe it too. That's the power of leadership communication. It's not manipulation. It's not performance. It's authentic strength delivered with intention. Now think about the opposite. Think about people who talk constantly but say nothing. People who fill rooms with words but leave no impact. People whose voices fade the moment they stop speaking. What's the difference? Why do some voices lead while others just create noise? The answer is simple. Leaders take ownership of their communication. They don't speak carelessly. They don't waste words. They don't hide behind vague language or soft phrases. They say what they mean. They mean what they say. And they take full responsibility for the impact of their words. Most people never develop this skill. They go through life speaking on autopilot, reacting instead of responding, filling silence instead of creating meaning, using 20 sentences when 2 would do, softening their message to avoid discomfort, and wondering why nobody takes them seriously. But you're different. You're here because you understand that communication is power. You understand that your voice is your primary tool for creating change. You understand that if you want to lead, influence, build, or inspire, you must master how you speak. In this audiobook, you'll learn exactly how to do that. Not theory, not philosophy. Practical, direct skills you can apply immediately in everyday conversations, high-pressure moments, and leadership roles. Each chapter focuses on one essential aspect of leadership communication. Together, they form a complete system for speaking with authority, clarity, and impact. You'll learn how to own every word you say with full confidence. How to speak so clearly that no one misunderstands your message. How to use your tone to command respect without raising your voice. How to move people to action through words alone. How to use strong language that builds respect and attention. How to drop weak talk and speak with real strength. How to hold difficult conversations without losing composure. How to give feedback that creates change instead of resistance. How to speak so people remember you long after you've left the room. And how to train your voice daily until leading becomes natural. This is for those who want to lead, not someday, not eventually, now. Because leadership doesn't wait for permission. It doesn't wait for a title. It doesn't wait for the perfect moment. Leadership starts the moment you decide your words will matter, the moment you take responsibility for your communication, the moment you commit to speaking with intention instead of habit. And here's what you need to understand. Leadership isn't a personality trait. It's not something you're born with or without. It's a set of skills, and communication is the most important skill in that set. You can have the best ideas in the world, but if you can't communicate them effectively, they die with you. You can see solutions nobody else sees, but if you can't articulate them clearly, that's why this audiobook exists. Not to give you theory about communication, to give you practical tools you can use today, tomorrow, in your next conversation, in your next meeting, in your next difficult moment. Every chapter is designed to be actionable. You're not just learning concepts. You're learning techniques. Think about where you are right now in your communication. Maybe you're someone who has good ideas but struggles to get people to listen. Maybe you're in a leadership position but feel like your team doesn't respect your direction. Maybe you're climbing the ladder but notice that people with worse ideas but better communication skills are advancing faster. Maybe you're just tired of being ignored, talked over, or dismissed. All of these situations have the same root cause. Your communication isn't as strong as it needs to be, and that's not a permanent condition. That's a skill set you haven't fully developed yet. This audiobook is your development program. You're going to learn things that feel uncomfortable at first. You're going to be challenged to drop habits you've had for years. You're going to be pushed to speak with more strength than you're used to. That discomfort is growth. That challenge is progress. That push is exactly what you need, because comfortable communication keeps you exactly where you are. And if you're listening to this audiobook, you don't want to stay where you are. You want to grow. You want to lead. You want your voice to matter. And that requires change. Real change. Not surface-level adjustments. Deep structural change in how you think about and use your voice. Your voice is your signature. People won't always remember every sentence you say, but they'll remember how you made them feel. They'll remember if you made them think. They'll remember if you gave them clarity when everything felt confusing. They'll remember if your words helped them move when they felt stuck. That's what this audiobook will teach you. Not how to sound like a leader, how to be one. Because when you master leadership communication, you don't try to lead, you just do. Your words carry weight naturally. Your presence creates respect automatically. Your voice guides people without force. If your words don't lead, nothing else will. Not your title, not your experience, not your knowledge. Because leadership is influence. And influence happens through communication. Master your voice and you master your ability to create change. The stakes are real. In your career, weak communication costs you promotions, opportunities, and respect. In your relationships, it costs you connection, understanding, and influence. In your life, it costs you the ability to create the outcomes you want. Every goal you have requires other people, and other people respond to how you communicate. Strong communicators get opportunities that others don't. They get listened to in meetings. They get their ideas implemented. They get promoted faster. They build stronger relationships. They create bigger impact. Not because they're smarter or more talented, because they know how to communicate in ways that move people. And here's the good news. This is completely learnable. You don't need to be born charismatic. You don't need a certain personality type. You don't need years of training. You need clear principles and consistent practice. This audiobook gives you the principles. You provide the practice. Every chapter you're about to hear contains tools you can use immediately. You'll finish this audiobook with specific techniques for every common communication challenge leaders face. You'll know exactly what to say and how to say it in high-pressure situations. You'll have frameworks for difficult conversations. You'll have strategies for moving people to action. You'll have the blueprint for building a voice that commands respect. But knowledge without application is useless. So as you listen, commit to applying what you learn. Don't just consume information. Implement it. Try one new technique in your next conversation. Notice the difference. Build from there. Real change happens through action, not just awareness. It starts here. It starts now. Let's begin. Chapter 1. Own every word you say with full confidence. That's where leadership begins. If you speak and your words don't carry weight, then you're just making noise. And noise doesn't move people. Noise doesn't change minds. Noise doesn't build trust. But when you speak with confidence, when you speak like every word matters, people notice. They listen. They lean in. And most importantly, they remember. Confidence doesn't mean being loud. It doesn't mean showing off. It means you stand behind your words. It means you believe what you're saying. And if you don't believe what you're saying, why should anyone else? Confidence starts when you stop second-guessing yourself and start taking full responsibility for every word that comes out of your mouth. Most people speak halfway. They're not sure. They throw out phrases like, I think, or maybe, or I guess, or I'm not sure, and every time they do that, they weaken their message. They lose people. Because the truth is, nobody follows someone who sounds unsure. Nobody buys into a message that sounds shaky. And nobody gets inspired by someone who doesn't believe in their own voice. Think about the last time someone gave you directions, but sounded uncertain. I think you turn left here, or maybe it's right. I'm not totally sure, but how much did you trust those directions? How confident did you feel following them? Probably not very. Now compare that to someone who says, turn left at the next light. You'll see a red building. Park there. Same information. Completely different impact. That's what confidence does. It removes doubt. It creates clarity. It makes people feel safe following your lead because you sound like you know where you're going. The same principle applies to every area of leadership communication. When you're giving feedback, when you're setting expectations, when you're making decisions, when you're guiding your team, confidence in your words determines whether people follow or question. And questioning isn't always bad. But when it comes from your lack of certainty rather than their genuine curiosity, you've lost ground. Consider how confidence shows up in daily situations. In a meeting, when someone asks your opinion and you respond with, well, I sort of think maybe we could potentially try this approach if everyone's okay with it, versus here's what we should do. We need to focus on these 3 areas, starting with this one. The first response invites doubt. The second invites action. Or think about when you're setting boundaries. I don't really want to do that if that's okay, versus that doesn't work for me. One leaves room for people to push back. One establishes a clear line. Leaders establish clear lines, not because they're controlling, but because clarity creates respect. Confidence also means taking responsibility for your mistakes without weakening your overall position. When you make an error, you don't say, "Oh my God, I'm so sorry, I'm terrible. I always mess things up. Please forgive me. I'll never do it again." That's not accountability. That's self-destruction. Instead, you say, "I made a mistake here. Here's how I'm fixing it." That's ownership without weakness. That's leadership. If you want to talk like a leader, you need to decide that your words matter. You need to mean what you say what you mean, and take full ownership of it. When you speak, people need to feel that you're serious. They need to feel that you're grounded, that what you're saying isn't just talk. It's who you are. It's what you stand for. So how do you do that? You start by paying attention to the words you use every day. Most people speak out of habit. They talk just to talk, but a leader speaks with intention. You don't waste your words. You don't ramble. You don't water things down. You speak straight. You speak real. And you speak with the kind of presence that says, "I've earned the right to be listened to." Start eliminating the phrases that drain your credibility. "I think" becomes "I believe," or better yet, just state it. "I know this works." "Maybe we should" becomes "we need to." "This might be wrong," but becomes nothing. Just say what you need to say. If you're wrong, you'll learn. But speaking with confidence means you're willing to be accountable for your words. Now, confidence in your words also comes from preparation. If you don't know what you're talking about, your voice will shake. Your message will fall apart. That's why leaders prepare. They think, they reflect, they get clear, so that when the time comes to speak, they're not making it up as they go. They've already done the work. They've already thought through what matters. And that's why their words carry power, because those words have already been tested in their own mind. They've been refined. They've been clarified. When you speak from that place, people feel it. They know you're not guessing. You're not performing. You're delivering something real. Confidence also grows when your words and your actions match. If you say one thing and do another, people will see through it. And eventually you'll start doubting yourself too. You can't talk like a leader if you're not living like one, because people listen more to your example than your explanations. They listen more to how you live than to what you say. When your behavior backs up your words, you don't have to try so hard to sound confident. You become confident because you've earned it. You're not pretending. You're not faking. You're speaking from integrity. And integrity is the foundation of all leadership communication. And another thing, stop apologizing for your truth. Stop shrinking your message to make other people comfortable. Leaders don't speak to be liked. They speak to be clear. They speak to lead. If you're always worried about what people think, you'll never say anything worth listening to. You don't have to be rude. You don't have to be aggressive, but you do have to be firm. You do have to be real, and that means you own your truth. Even if not everyone agrees with it, even if it makes some people uncomfortable, even if it challenges the status quo. When you walk into a room and speak, the room should feel it. Not because you're loud, but because you're solid. You're steady. And people can feel that you're not guessing your way through life. You've made decisions. You've built beliefs. You've tested ideas. And now you speak from experience, not just opinion. That's what gives your words weight. That's what makes people stop and listen. That's what separates leaders from followers. Leaders have done the internal work. They know who they are. They know what they stand for. And when they speak, that certainty comes through. It also means you stop using soft language to protect your ego. Cut out the fillers. Cut out the uncertainty. If you believe in something, say it. If you stand for something, speak it. If something's not right, call it out. Too many people weaken their voice trying to sound nice. But leadership isn't about sounding nice. It's about speaking what matters, even when it's uncomfortable. Confidence in your words also comes from being okay with silence. Weak speakers rush to fill every pause. They're afraid of quiet. But strong communicators know that silence can be powerful. You say something important, then you pause. You give people time to hear it, to feel it, to let it land. You don't rush. You don't beg for approval. You say what needs to be said, and then you wait. And that silence speaks just as loudly as your words. It shows you're not nervous. It shows you're not desperate for validation. It shows you're comfortable with your message standing on its own. That comfort creates respect. Now here's something you should always remember. Your voice is your tool, not your crutch. You don't talk to prove yourself. You don't speak to look smart. You speak to serve a purpose. You speak to lead people toward something better. And when you know that, your voice changes. Your tone shifts. You stop performing. You start leading. Because now you're not talking to impress. You're talking to impact. You're not speaking to fill time. You're speaking to create change. And people feel that difference. They respond to it. They respect it. Talking like a leader isn't about using big words. It's not about having perfect grammar. It's not about showing off your vocabulary. It's about being clear. It's about being certain. It's about being real. People follow that. People respond to that. Because in a world full of noise, real voices stand out. So if you want to talk like a leader, the first thing you have to do is this. Own every word you say. Stop outsourcing your voice. Stop doubting your message. Speak with your chest. Speak from your gut. Speak like you mean it. And every time you do, your confidence grows. Your presence grows. Your leadership grows. Because once you own your words, you start owning your space. You show up differently. You carry yourself with a kind of quiet power. People can see it in your face. They can hear it in your tone. They can feel it in your presence. You're no longer trying to sound like a leader. You are one, and that changes everything. Because leadership communication isn't a performance. It's not a mask you put on for important moments. It's an integrated way of being that shows up in every conversation, every interaction, every word. When you own your words fully, you own your presence. When you own your presence, you own the room. And when you own the room, you lead, not through force, through natural authority that people feel and respond to. This is where your journey begins, with owning every single word, with taking full responsibility for your communication, with deciding that, from this moment forward, your voice will carry weight, because you give it weight. You respect it. You develop it. You use it with intention. The world is full of people talking, but leaders are rare. Leaders are people whose words create movement, whose voices create change, whose communication builds something real. That's what you're becoming. Not someone who talks more, someone who talks better, someone whose words lead. Chapter 2. Speak clearly, so nitrogen monoxide 1 misunderstands your message. That's one of the most important habits you can develop if you want to lead people, influence them, or even just be taken seriously in your daily life. Clear speaking is not about being fancy. It's not about complicated words. It's not about sounding impressive. It's about being understood. And when people understand you, they trust you. When they trust you, they listen. When they listen, things start to happen. But if people can't understand what you're saying, then it doesn't matter how good your ideas are. It doesn't matter how smart you are. It doesn't matter how well-intentioned you are. If your words don't land, you lose the moment. You lose connection. You lose respect. And worst of all, people start filling in the blanks. They start guessing what you meant. And guess what? People rarely guess in your favor. That's why clarity is everything. If people don't hear you clearly, they will misunderstand you. And once your message gets lost, so does your influence. Talking like a leader means you take full responsibility for making your message clear. You don't dump information on people and expect them to figure it out. You think before you speak. You slow down. You strip away all the fluff. You stop trying to sound smart and focus on being understood. That's how strong communication begins. Most people never learn this. They talk fast. They ramble. They assume others know what they mean. They skip steps in their explanation. And they leave a trail of confusion everywhere they go. Then they wonder why people don't follow them. Why people don't trust them. Why their team is disorganized. The answer is simple. Unclear words create unclear minds. If people are confused after you speak, that's not their fault. It's yours. You failed to deliver your message in a way they could receive. You failed to take responsibility for clarity. So what does clear speaking really look like? It starts with knowing what you want to say before you say it. If your thoughts are scattered, your words will be scattered. You have to think through your ideas. Be specific. Don't speak in vague terms. Say exactly what you mean. If you're asking someone to do something, say it in one straight line. Don't overcomplicate it. Don't try to sound impressive. Just be real and direct. I need you to finish this report by Friday at 3 p.m. Not so. I was thinking, if you get a chance, maybe we could try to have the report done sometime this week if possible. See the difference? One is clear. One is confusion wrapped in politeness. And politeness at the expense of clarity is not leadership. It's avoidance. Let's break down why the first version works. It has a specific person, you. It has a specific task, finish this report. It has a specific deadline, Friday at 3 p.m. There's no room for interpretation. There's no wiggle room. There's no confusion about expectations. That's clarity. The second version fails on every level. I was thinking suggests you're not sure. If you get a chance suggests it's optional. Maybe reinforces the lack of commitment. Try to have suggests it might not happen. Sometime this week is vague. If possible, gives them an out. You've given someone 6 different ways to not do what you're asking. And here's what happens in organizations every day. Leaders speak the second way, then get frustrated when things don't get done. But the failure wasn't in the execution. It was in the communication. You didn't give clear instructions. You gave a suggestion wrapped in uncertainty, and people responded accordingly. Clear speaking also means organizing information logically. When you're explaining something complex, break it down. There are 3 reasons this matters. First, it affects our revenue. Second, it impacts team morale. Third, it determines our competitive position. That structure helps people follow. It helps them remember. It helps them act. Compare that to dumping everything at once. So this is important because of revenue, and also the team is affected. And we need to think about competition, and there's timing issues and budget concerns and also stakeholder expectations. And by sentence 3, people have stopped listening. Not because they don't care, but because your lack of structure made it impossible to follow. Clarity also means cutting out all the extra words that water down your point. Most people talk in circles. They add unnecessary explanations. They repeat themselves 3 times trying to make sure they're understood. But repetition doesn't create clarity. Precision does. 1 clear sentence is more powerful than 5 confused ones. So before you speak, ask yourself, what's the core of what I'm trying to say? What's the one thing this person needs to understand? Then say that. Just that. Nothing more. Leaders respect other people's time. And the best way to show respect is through clarity. When you speak clearly, people can act on your words immediately. They don't need to ask for clarification. They don't need to decode your message. They know exactly what you mean, what you expect, and what happens next. Clear speaking also requires you to understand your audience. What do they need to know? What language do they use? What level of detail helps versus what overwhelms? A leader adjusts their communication based on who's listening, not by dumbing things down, by making things accessible. If you're talking to someone technical, use technical language. If you're talking to someone new, break it down simply. The goal isn't to show how much you know. The goal is to transfer understanding from your mind to theirs. And that only happens through clear, intentional communication. Avoid jargon unless everyone in the room knows it. Avoid assumptions. Don't say obviously or clearly or as you know, because if it were obvious, you wouldn't need to say it. And when you use those phrases, you make people feel dumb for not already knowing. That's not leadership. That's ego. Another critical part of clarity is structure. Don't just throw information at people. Organize it. There are 3 things we need to handle. First, this. Second, this. Third, this. People's brains love structure. It helps them follow. It helps them remember. It helps them act. When you speak without structure, even if every word is clear, the overall message gets lost. People walk away confused because they couldn't see the shape of what you were saying. But when you give them a framework, they can hold on to it. They can build on it. Clear speaking also means being direct without being harsh. You can say hard things clearly. You don't need to sugarcoat everything. But you also don't need to be cruel. There's a difference between "this isn't working" and "you're terrible at your job." Both are direct. One is clear and helpful. One is just mean. Leaders speak truth, but they speak it in a way that people can actually hear and use. Not to destroy, to build. And when you deliver difficult messages with clarity instead of emotion, people respect you more, because they know you're focused on the issue, not on attacking them. You also maintain clarity by staying calm. When your emotions rise, your clarity drops. You start talking faster. You start using more words. You start losing focus. But when you stay calm, you stay clear. Your words come out measured, controlled, precise. That's why the best leaders are the calmest in crisis. Not because they don't feel pressure, but because they know that losing clarity means losing control. And their job is to provide clarity when everyone else is confused. Practice clarity in small moments. When someone asks you a question, give a clear answer. When you're giving directions, be specific. When you're explaining an idea, organize it first in your mind, then speak it. These small practices build the habit of clarity, and over time, clear speaking becomes your default. Don't hide behind complexity to sound intelligent. Simple, clear language is the mark of true intelligence. Anyone can make something sound complicated. It takes real skill to make something complex sound simple. And that's what leaders do. They take complicated situations and break them down into clear next steps. Remember, clarity is a gift. When you speak clearly, you help people move forward. You remove confusion. You create confidence. You build trust. And trust is the foundation of all leadership. People follow clear voices, not loud ones, not fancy ones, clear ones. So speak clearly, always, in every conversation, in every meeting, in every message. Make it your standard. Make it your reputation. Become known as someone whose words are always clear, always direct, always easy to understand. Because when you master clarity, you master influence. And when people understand you, they can follow you. And that's the whole point of leadership communication. Chapter 3. Use your tone to command respect without raising your voice. This is the skill that separates amateurs from leaders. Anyone can yell. Anyone can get loud. Anyone can use volume to try to force respect, but that's not leadership. That's desperation. Real leaders understand that tone is more powerful than volume, and respect is never demanded. It's earned through how you speak. Your tone carries more meaning than your words. People might forget what you said, but they'll always remember how you made them feel. And how you make them feel comes through your tone. Not what you say, how you say it. A calm, steady tone commands more respect than a loud, aggressive one. Why? Because calm shows control. Calm shows confidence. Calm shows that you're not rattled. You're not desperate. You're not trying to prove anything. You're simply stating what is. When you raise your voice, you lose respect. People might obey you in that moment out of fear or discomfort, but they won't respect you. They'll resent you. And resentment kills leadership. You can't lead people who resent you. You can only control them temporarily. And the moment you're not watching, they'll do the opposite of what you said. But when you speak with a tone that's firm yet calm, direct yet respectful, people lean in. They listen more carefully. They take you seriously, not because you're loud, because you're solid. Think about the people you respect most. Do they yell to get their point across? Or do they speak in a way that makes you want to listen? The answer is always the latter. True authority doesn't shout. It speaks, and people listen. Your tone should match your message. If you're delivering something serious, your tone should be serious. Not angry, serious. There's a difference. Serious means steady, focused, grounded. Angry means reactive, out of control, emotional. When you deliver serious news with a serious tone, people trust you. They know you understand the weight of what you're saying. But when you deliver serious news with an angry tone, people shut down. They stop hearing your words and start managing your emotions. And now they're parenting you instead of following you. Leaders don't make people manage their emotions. Leaders manage their own emotions and use tone to guide others through difficult moments. That's the difference. So how do you develop a tone that commands respect? First, slow down. Fast talking signals nervousness. Slow talking signals confidence. You're not in a rush. You're not anxious. You have all the time in the world because you're in control. Second, lower your pitch slightly. Not artificially, but naturally. When people are nervous or trying to please, their voice goes higher. When people are confident and grounded, their voice drops slightly. Find your natural lower register and speak from there. Third, eliminate vocal fry and upspeak. Vocal fry is that creaky, rough sound at the end of sentences. Upspeak is when your sentences sound like questions, even when they're statements. Both of these patterns make you sound unsure, insecure, young, and they kill your authority. Vocal fry has become epidemic, especially among younger professionals. It happens when you let your voice drop so low at the end of sentences that it starts to crackle. Some people think it sounds relaxed or casual, but to most listeners, especially in professional settings, it sounds like you're bored, uncertain, or lacking energy. Upspeak is equally damaging. It's when your voice rises at the end of declarative sentences, making them sound like questions. So I think we should launch the project in March. You just turned a decision into a question. You just asked for approval when you should have been stating a direction. Both habits undermine your authority in ways you might not consciously recognize, but others feel it. They sense the uncertainty. They hear the lack of commitment, and they respond accordingly. They push back more. They question more. They take you less seriously. The fix is awareness plus practice. Record yourself speaking. Most people are shocked when they hear these patterns in their own voice because they don't hear them in real time. But once you hear them, you can fix them. Practice ending statements with your voice dropping slightly. Make declarations sound like declarations, not questions. This doesn't mean you become monotone. Your voice can still have energy and variation, but the overall trajectory of your statements should be downward at the end, not upward. That downward movement signals certainty. It signals completion. It signals this is what is, not what might be. Speak in declarative sentences. Let your voice drop at the end of statements. Don't let every sentence sound like you're asking for approval. You're not asking, you're stating. That shift in tone creates massive shifts in how people perceive you. Fourth, use pauses strategically. Most people are terrified of silence, so they fill every gap with words. But silence is powerful. When you make an important point, pause. Let it sink in. Don't rush to the next sentence. Give people time to absorb what you said. That pause shows confidence. It shows you're not afraid of quiet. It shows you trust your message enough to let it stand alone. And it forces people to actually think about what you said instead of just waiting for you to keep talking. Fifth, match your tone to your body language. If your tone is confident, but your body is slouched, people won't believe you. If your tone is calm, but you're fidgeting, people will sense the disconnect. Your tone and your body must align. Stand or sit with good posture. Keep your hands steady. Make eye contact. And speak from a grounded place. When everything aligns, your tone becomes undeniable. People feel your presence before you even finish speaking. That's command. That's respect. That's leadership. You also need to understand that tone adapts but never weakens. In a calm conversation, your tone can be warm. In a tense situation, your tone becomes firmer. In a moment of crisis, your tone becomes steady and directive. But in all cases, it remains controlled. It remains intentional. You're not a different person in different situations. You're the same grounded leader adjusting your tone to meet the moment. That consistency builds trust. People know what to expect from you. They know you won't lose it. They know you won't crack under pressure. And that knowledge creates respect. Now here's the hard part. Developing this kind of tone requires emotional regulation. You can't command respect with your tone if your emotions are commanding you. If someone challenges you and your tone immediately becomes defensive, you've lost. If someone criticizes you and your tone becomes sharp, you've lost. Leaders don't react, they respond. And the difference shows up in tone. Reaction is fast, emotional, uncontrolled. Response is measured, thoughtful, grounded. Practice responding instead of reacting. Take a breath before you speak. Let the emotion pass. Then speak from clarity, not heat. This doesn't mean you can't show emotion. Leaders are human, but your emotion should enhance your message, not hijack it. You can speak with passion. You can speak with intensity. But underneath that passion should always be control. Always be intention. Always be purpose. People respect leaders who feel things deeply, but don't let those feelings control their communication. That balance is rare, and when people encounter it, they pay attention. Your tone also needs to be consistent. If you're calm one day and explosive the next, people won't respect you. They'll fear you. Or worse, they'll ignore you because they never know which version of you they're getting. Consistency in tone builds predictability, and predictability builds trust. Train your tone in low-stakes situations. Practice speaking with intention when ordering coffee, when answering the phone, when giving directions. Build the habit of controlling your tone when it doesn't matter, so it's automatic when it does. Record yourself speaking. Most people have no idea how they actually sound. When you hear yourself, you'll notice patterns. You'll catch the places where your voice rises unnecessarily, where you sound unsure, where you lose control, and you can fix them. Remember, volume gets attention. Tone keeps it. Anyone can shout to make people look, but only a strong, controlled tone makes people stay, makes people listen, makes people follow. So stop yelling, stop pushing. Stop trying to force respect through volume. Start speaking with a tone that earns it. Calm, steady, controlled, grounded. That's the tone of leadership. That's the tone that changes rooms. That's the tone that moves people. Master your tone, and you master your presence. And when your presence is strong, your voice doesn't need to be loud. It just needs to be real. Chapter 4. Move people to action through words alone. This is where leadership communication becomes leadership impact. Because ultimately, words mean nothing if they don't move people. If your message doesn't create action, it's just entertainment. It's just information. It's just noise. But when your words move people from thinking to doing, from planning to executing, from hesitation to decision, that's when you're truly leading. Most people can talk. Few can move people. The difference is intention. Leaders speak with a specific goal of creating movement. They don't speak to hear themselves talk. They don't speak to show off what they know. They speak to shift people from one state to another, from confusion to clarity, from doubt to confidence, from stuck to moving. So how do you use words to move people? First, you have to understand what actually moves human beings. It's not logic alone. It's not emotion alone. It's the combination. People need to understand why something matters and feel why it matters. Your words must speak to both their mind and their gut. When you want to move someone, start with why it matters. Not why it matters to you, why it matters to them. People don't move for your reasons. They move for theirs. So your job is to connect your message to their goals, their fears, their desires, their future. Don't say, "We need to finish this project because I said so." Say, "Finishing this project on time protects your reputation and opens doors for bigger opportunities." See the difference? One is command. One is connection. Command might get compliance. Connection gets commitment. Second, make your call to action crystal clear. Don't hint. Don't suggest. Don't leave room for interpretation. Tell people exactly what you want them to do and when you want them to do it. Vague requests create vague results. Specific requests create specific action. Don't say, "We should probably think about improving our process." Say, "Starting Monday, we're implementing this new process. Here's your role. Here's the timeline. Here's what success looks like." That clarity removes confusion. And when confusion is gone, movement becomes easy. Third, create urgency without panic. People need to feel that action matters now, not someday. But if you create panic, they freeze. So your words need to balance. This is important, and we can handle it. This matters now, and here's exactly what to do. Use language that highlights cost of inaction. If we wait another month, we lose this opportunity. Every day we don't address this, it gets harder to fix. The gap between where we are and where we need to be is growing. That language creates healthy pressure. It makes delay feel uncomfortable. And discomfort moves people. But here's the key. You're not creating panic. You're creating urgency. Panic makes people freeze. Urgency makes people move. The difference is in your tone and your provision of a clear path forward. When you say, "This is urgent," but offer no solution, that's panic. When you say, "This is urgent, and here's exactly what we're doing about it," that's leadership. Consider how this plays out in real situations. Let's say your team has been putting off a necessary system upgrade. Weak communication sounds like, "We really should think about upgrading soon." That creates zero movement. Stronger communication. Every week we delay this upgrade costs us productivity and puts us at risk. We're implementing it next month. Here's the plan that creates movement. Or think about personal conversations. Someone you care about is stuck in a bad situation. You could say, "You should probably do something about that eventually." Or you could say, "This pattern is hurting you. You deserve better." What would it take for you to make a change this month? 1 enables continued delay. 1 catalyzes decision. The language of movement also addresses the internal obstacles people face. Most people don't resist action because they're lazy. They resist because they're afraid. Afraid of failure. Afraid of judgment. Afraid of the unknown. Your words need to acknowledge that fear without letting it win. I know this feels risky. It is. But staying where you are is riskier. That acknowledges their feeling while reframing the risk. Now they're not choosing between safe and risky. They're choosing between 2 different risks. And 1 risk leads somewhere better. Another powerful technique, connect action to identity. People don't just want to do things. They want to be someone. So speak to who they're becoming, not just what they're doing. Leaders don't wait for perfect conditions. They create them. Now you're not just asking for action. You're calling them into an identity. An identity is one of the strongest motivators that exists. 4th, paint the picture of the outcome. People need to see where they're going, not just what they're doing, but why it matters. Use descriptive language that helps them visualize the end result. When we complete this, you'll have a system that runs itself. You'll spend your time leading instead of firefighting. You'll go home at 5 p.m. instead of 8. That vision pulls people forward. It gives them something to move toward, not just something to run from. Both matter. But vision is what sustains movement over time. 5th, remove obstacles with your words. When people hesitate, it's usually because they see barriers. I don't have time. I don't know how. What if it doesn't work? Your job is to address those barriers directly. You'll have support. Here's the training. We'll adjust as we go. When you remove their reasons not to move, movement becomes the path of least resistance. And that's what you want. You want action to feel easier than inaction. 6th, use consequences and rewards strategically. Don't threaten, but do be clear about what happens if someone moves forward versus what happens if they don't. If you take this step, you'll gain this skill, this opportunity, this result. If you stay where you are, you'll stay limited by the same problems you have now. That's not manipulation. That's reality. And leaders speak reality clearly, so people can make informed decisions about their own lives. 7th, challenge people to rise. Sometimes what moves people isn't inspiration or fear. It's being called higher. You're capable of more than this. You know it. I know it. So stop playing small and do what you know you should do. That kind of direct challenge, when delivered with respect, can shift someone's entire trajectory. People are often waiting for permission to be great, waiting for someone to believe in them before they believe in themselves. Your words can be that permission. Your words can be that belief. And when you speak to someone's potential instead of their current performance, you give them something to live up to. 8. Make it personal, but not manipulative. Show people you see them. You understand them. You're not speaking to a crowd. You're speaking to a person. I know you've been working hard. I see what you're dealing with, and I believe you can handle this next step. That acknowledgement creates connection, and connection creates willingness to move. Ninth, use stories and examples. Abstract concepts don't move people. Stories do. When you tell someone about another person who faced the same situation and took action and succeeded, you give them a model. You show them it's possible. You make it real in their mind. Last year, Sarah was exactly where you are now. She made the decision to push through. Now she's leading her own team. That story does more than 100 motivational quotes, because it's real, it's tangible, it's proof. 10th, speak with urgency but also patience. You want people to move now, but you also need to give them space to process. Don't overwhelm and to bulldoze. Say what needs to be said. Give them the information, show them the path, and then give them a moment to decide. Think about it today. Let me know tomorrow. That gives them time without giving them an excuse to delay indefinitely. You're still creating movement. You're just doing it in a way that respects their process. 11th, follow words with accountability. If you tell someone to do something but never follow up, your words lose power. But if people know you'll check in, they move. We'll meet Friday to review your progress. That one sentence ensures action, because now there's a deadline and a checkpoint. Accountability isn't punishment, it's structure. And structure helps people move when they might otherwise procrastinate. Finally, lead with your own action. Your words move people most powerfully when your life backs them up. If you're telling people to work harder, but you're not, they won't move. If you're telling people to take risks, but you play it safe, they won't move. But when your words and your actions align, people follow naturally. You become living proof that what you're saying works. And that proof is more convincing than any speech you could give. Move people through words by speaking to their why, giving them clear direction, creating urgency, painting the vision, removing obstacles, and following through with accountability. Do that consistently, and you won't have to beg people to act. They want to, because your words gave them clarity, confidence, and a reason to move. And that's the essence of leadership communication, using words not just to inform, but to ignite action. Chapter 5. Use strong words that build respect and attention. That's a skill most never take seriously, but every leader must master. People don't follow voices that are weak, unsure, or filled with fluff. They follow voices that speak with substance. And strong words don't mean harsh words. They mean words that hold meaning, words that carry weight, and words that show you've earned the right to be heard. Every time you speak, you're either building credibility or losing it. You're either gaining attention or being ignored. It all comes down to your word choice. Weak words are forgettable. Strong words are remembered. To talk like a leader, you have to understand the impact your words make. Not just the meaning, but the tone, the presence, the power behind them. Strong words demand attention, not because they're loud, but because they're precise. When you speak with clear, strong language, people stop and listen. They sense you're serious. They feel your confidence. You don't have to repeat yourself. You don't have to over-explain. One sentence spoken with power and clarity can change the direction of a conversation, and in some cases, a life. Weak language creates doubt. When you use phrases like I think, or maybe, or I guess, or sort of, you dilute your message. You strip it of strength, and people stop listening. Strong words are clean. They are direct. They don't leave space for confusion. They show you've made a decision. You're not offering a suggestion. You're making a statement. Let's look at specific word swaps that increase your power immediately. Replace I think with I believe, or simply state your position directly. I think this might work becomes this will work. Replace maybe with specific conditionals. Maybe we should meet becomes let's meet Tuesday at 2 p.m. Replace sort of with nothing. It's filler. Cut it. This is sort of important becomes this is important. Replace just when it diminishes your message. I'm just checking in becomes I'm checking in. The word just minimizes. It apologizes for taking up space. Leaders don't apologize for their presence. Replace actually when you're stating facts. I actually disagree becomes I disagree. The word actually signals surprise that you have an opinion, as if you shouldn't. Remove it. Replace I'll try with I will or I can't. I'll try is the language of uncommitment. It's a pre-excuse for failure. Either commit or decline. Don't live in the weak middle ground of trying. Replace questions with statements when you're not actually asking. Could we possibly schedule a meeting? Becomes, let's schedule a meeting. You're not asking permission. You're making a proposal. These aren't small changes. They're fundamental shifts in how you position yourself through language. Each weak word you eliminate makes your voice stronger. Each strong word you add builds your credibility. Over time, these changes compound. People start experiencing you differently, not because you changed who you are, but because you changed how you present who you are. And when people hear that kind of certainty, they're more likely to respect your voice. If you're always trying to be soft, trying not to offend, trying to please everyone, you'll end up saying nothing that matters. People respect clarity. They follow someone who speaks the truth, even if it's uncomfortable. Especially when it's uncomfortable. Strong words are not about being aggressive. They're about being unshakable. You don't raise your voice. You raise your standard. That's what makes people pay attention. Your choice of words reflects your standards. If you've settled for average in your thinking, your words will sound average. But if you've demanded more from yourself, your words will reflect that. Strong words come from a strong mindset. When your thinking is clear, your language becomes powerful. If you speak with strength, it's because you've built strength inside. You've dealt with pressure. You've faced challenges. You've earned your voice. People don't just want to hear information. And they want to hear belief. They want to feel conviction. If your words are filled with doubt, you lose them. But when you speak from your core, when you say things you've lived, people lock in. Because they can feel the difference between talk and truth. Talk is easy. Truth takes discipline. And when your words are based on truth, people can't ignore you. Using strong words also means eliminating all the filler. Cut the phrases that do nothing. You know, and kind of, and it's like weaken your impact. They create noise. And leadership is not about noise. It's about precision. One clear sentence delivered without hesitation is more powerful than a 10-minute speech filled with filler. Say less, but say it better. To gain respect when you speak, you have to respect your own words. That means you don't talk just to talk. You don't speak when you haven't thought. Every sentence has a purpose. Every word has intention. That's how people begin to respect you. Not just because of what you say, but because of how carefully you say it. Attention is earned. It's not automatic, and it's not about being flashy. It's about being solid. Your words should be like anchors. When you say something, it stays. People carry it with them. They think about it later, because it wasn't just a sound. It was a statement. If your words fade as soon as they're heard, you're not leading, you're blending in. The language of leadership is bold, not reckless. It's confident, not arrogant. And it's always clear. Clarity is power. If someone has to ask, "What did you mean by that?" you've already lost them. People follow voices that are easy to understand but hard to ignore. That's the balance. Simplicity and strength combined. No fluff, no ego, just truth delivered directly. There's also something else you need to know. Strong words must be earned. You can't fake them. If your life doesn't match your message, your words will feel empty. That's why personal discipline matters. That's why living with standards matters. Because your voice gains power from your example. When you've lived what you speak, you don't have to convince people. They feel it. They hear it. It's different. You build attention when your words bring value. Every time you speak, ask yourself, is this helping someone think better, act better, live better? If the answer is no, don't say it. Save your energy for what matters. Leaders don't speak to fill time. They speak to shift something. And when your words consistently deliver value, people make space for you. They stop scrolling. They stop moving. They listen. Strong words are also honest. Not cruel, but honest. You say the thing that needs to be said. You don't hide behind comfort. You don't dress it up. You tell the truth clearly and directly. Most people avoid this. They speak in circles. They soften everything. But when you talk like a leader, you speak with boldness. You say, "This isn't working." You say, "This needs to change." You say, "Here's what has to happen." That kind of clarity builds respect. Not everyone will like it, but they will remember it. And when people remember your words, you become a voice of influence. Not because you forced it, but because you earned it. You spoke with focus, with courage, with precision. That's what sets leaders apart. They don't speak more. They speak stronger. And that strength doesn't come from shouting. It comes from self-control, from thought, from responsibility. Every room you enter is full of voices. Most of them blur together. But when someone speaks with weight, with depth, with clarity, everyone turns. That's your goal. Not to be the loudest, but to be the one people stop for. Because what you say carries something real. That's leadership. And leadership starts with how you talk to yourself. If your internal voice is weak, your outer voice will be weak too. Speak strong inside first. No more self-doubt. No more playing small. You train your mind to think with strength, and your words will follow. You say, "I can do this. I will make it better. I refuse to stay average." When you talk to yourself with strength, you begin to talk to the world the same way. So choose your words with care. Speak with conviction. Speak with strength. Cut out the soft language that wastes people's time. Speak to be clear, not liked. Speak to make an impact, not just fill silence. Speak from experience, not theory. When your words are strong, people feel it. They listen longer, they trust more, and they remember. That's how respect is built. That's how attention is earned. Not through noise, but through strong, clear, real words that speak directly to what matters. You don't need a crowd. You don't need approval. You need discipline. You need belief. And you need the courage to speak as someone who means every word. That's what leadership sounds like. And that's what people will follow. Not just words, but words that lead. Chapter 6. Drop the weak talk and speak with real strength. That's the moment everything changes. Not just in your communication, but in your life. Because the way you speak reveals how you think, and how you think shapes everything. Weak talk is more than soft words. It's the habit of speaking from hesitation, from fear, from insecurity. And the longer you speak that way, the more it shapes who you are. It becomes part of your identity. But when you decide to stop using that kind of language, when you choose to speak with real strength, you don't just sound different. You become different. You become sharper, more certain, more respected. People know when your voice carries strength. They feel it. Not because you raise your volume, but because your words have a backbone. There's a quiet authority in your tone. There's intention in your delivery. There's power in your message. And that only happens when you stop diluting your speech with phrases that drain your credibility. You hear weak talk every day. I'm not sure, but, or hopefully it works out, or this might sound dumb. But these phrases slip into conversation, and every time they do, they send a message. I don't fully believe in what I'm saying. You may not mean to say that, but that's exactly what people hear. Weak talk undercuts your message before it even lands. It shows doubt. It creates distance. It softens your edge. And if you're trying to lead, trying to influence, trying to earn trust, those words will cost you everything. Real strength in your voice begins with eliminating the words that waste your power. You don't need to explain yourself to everyone. You don't need to shrink your opinion to avoid discomfort. You don't need to sound small to be liked. You're not here to be liked. You're here to be clear, to be strong, to be solid. And that starts by dropping every phrase that gives people permission to ignore you. You don't need to say, I just think you think it. Say it. Don't lead with sorry, but you're not sorry for having a point. And you don't need to ask for permission with every sentence. When you speak with strength, your words stand on their own. You're not pushing them. You're not begging for attention. You're simply saying something real with no apology, no hesitation, no confusion. Strength doesn't mean aggression. You don't need to be harsh to be powerful. You don't need to dominate the room. Real strength is calm. It's controlled. It's steady. It's you speaking from a place of certainty because you know who you are, and you know what you're saying matters. You've thought about it. You've earned it. You're not performing. You're delivering something that has value. When you speak with strength, people respect you differently. They don't interrupt you as much. They don't question you the same way. They listen longer because strong words hold attention, and attention is currency. It's not given, it's earned. Weak talk loses attention. Strong talk earns it. And once you have someone's full attention, that's when you make impact. If you want to lead, you have to decide what kind of voice you're going to use. Not the sound, the tone, the structure, the meaning. Will it be padded with disclaimers, softeners, and fillers? Or will it be sharp, intentional, and exact? The truth is, nobody's going to fix this for you. If you've grown up around weak talk, if you've worked in environments full of people who avoid saying things directly, you might have picked up those habits. But habits can be unlearned. And this is one habit worth changing. Strong speech starts with internal conviction. If you don't believe in what you're saying, no one else will. So build your beliefs. Think deeply. Challenge your own ideas. Once you've done the work internally, you'll stop needing to defend yourself so much externally. You won't need to sound loud. You'll just need to sound clear. And clarity is a powerful form of strength. People who use weak talk often feel invisible. They feel unheard. But it's not always the world ignoring them. It's the way they present their voice. You train people how to treat your message. If you treat it like it's unsure, optional, vague, they will too. But when you speak with clarity and strength, people pause, they think, they take notice, and your presence grows. Let me show you what this looks like in real situations. Imagine you're in a team meeting and someone proposes an idea you know won't work. Weak response. I don't know, that might not be the best idea, but I could be wrong. It's just my opinion. Strong response. I see a problem with that approach. Here's what concerns me. Same disagreement. Completely different impact. Or imagine you're negotiating a deadline. Weak. So, I was hoping maybe we could possibly push this back a few days if that's okay. Strong. I need until Friday to deliver this at the standard we've agreed on. One invites negotiation from a position of weakness. One sets a boundary from a position of strength. Or imagine someone asks you to take on extra work when you're already overloaded. Weak. I'm pretty busy, but I guess I could try to fit it in somehow if you really need me to. Strong. My plate is full. I can take this on if we deprioritize something else. Which project should I delay? One leads to burnout and resentment. One leads to clear priorities and mutual respect. The pattern is always the same. Weak talk leaves gaps for others to push through. Strong talk sets clear boundaries. Weak talk asks for approval. Strong talk states reality. Weak talk apologizes for existing. Strong talk owns its space. And here's the truth. People respect strength. Not aggression, not rudeness, but calm, clear strength. They may not always agree with you, but they respect you. And respect is the foundation of all influence. There's also a time factor. Weak talk wastes time. You ramble. You go in circles. You add 3 extra sentences when one would do. Strong speech is efficient. It gets to the point. It respects people's time. That's another way strength shows up, and how little you need to say to get your message across. When you stop trying to impress and just focus on the truth, your voice becomes cleaner. And cleaner voices move faster through the noise. You'll also feel different when you stop using weak talk. There's a shift in your posture, in your energy, in how you enter a room. Because you're no longer second-guessing yourself while you speak. You're not editing every sentence in real time. You're not bracing for judgment, You're delivering something solid, and you know it. That gives you freedom. And that freedom turns into confidence. Weak talk comes from fear. Fear of being wrong. Fear of being judged. Fear of being disliked. But here's the truth. If you try to speak in a way that never offends, never challenges, never demands, then your words will never be taken seriously. And if your words aren't taken seriously, you'll never lead. So you have to decide, do you want to be liked or do you want to be effective? You can't do both. Not always. Leadership isn't about comfort. It's about clarity. It's about moving things forward. And that requires strength in how you communicate. It means you drop the soft padding and say the thing that needs to be said. You don't do it carelessly. You do it with discipline, with focus, with purpose. You don't use strength to push people down. You use it to lift them. But lifting doesn't mean being gentle with everything. Sometimes strength sounds like challenge. Sometimes it sounds like correction. Sometimes it sounds like that's not acceptable. And sometimes it's just silence. Holding your ground when others want you to fold. All of that is communication. And all of it comes from dropping the weak habits that dilute your presence. Don't wait for a perfect moment to start speaking stronger. Practice in your daily conversations. Cut out one soft phrase at a time. Replace I hope with I will. Replace I guess with I've decided. Replace it might be with here is what I see. These small changes add up. They rewire your voice. And before long, your entire presence shifts. People notice, you notice, and you begin to operate at a higher level. You don't need to shout. You don't need to argue. You just need to stop apologizing for having a voice. Stop hiding behind weak language. Stop shrinking your message to make others comfortable. Speak with strength. Speak with clarity. Speak with the confidence that comes from knowing you've earned your voice. And when you do that consistently, you'll see the shift in how people treat you and how they listen to you and how they follow you. Because weak talk creates weak results. But strong talk creates strong respect. And respect is what every leader needs to move people, build trust, and create real change. So drop the weak talk, starting today, starting now, and watch how quickly your leadership grows. Chapter 7. Hold difficult conversations without losing composure. This is where most people fail. They can talk well when things are comfortable. They can communicate clearly when everyone agrees. But the moment tension rises, the moment conflict appears, the moment someone challenges them, they fall apart. Their voice shakes. Their message gets lost. Their composure cracks. But leaders are built in these moments. Because leadership isn't about handling easy situations. It's about staying grounded when everything around you isn't. It's about holding your center when emotions are high and stakes are real. It's about having difficult conversations without losing yourself in them. Difficult conversations are inevitable. If you're leading, you'll have them. If you're building something real, you'll have them. If you're living with standards, you'll have them. You can't avoid them, but you can master them. And mastery starts with composure. Composure doesn't mean you don't feel anything. It means you don't let what you feel control what you say. You feel the frustration, the anger, the disappointment, but you don't speak from it. You feel it, acknowledge it internally, and then speak from a place of clarity. That's control. That's strength. Most people do the opposite. They feel something and immediately speak from that feeling. And when you speak from raw emotion, you say things you regret. You damage relationships. You lose respect. And worst of all, you don't solve the problem. You just create more problems. So the first rule of holding difficult conversations is this: feel it, but don't speak from it. Let the emotion move through you. Take a breath, pause, ground yourself, then speak. That small gap between feeling and speaking is where composure lives, and it's where leadership is born. This is harder than it sounds. Your body will physically react to conflict. Your heart rate increases. Your breathing gets shallow. Your muscles tense. All of this happens automatically because your nervous system perceives threat. But here's what most people don't realize. You can feel all of that and still choose how you respond. The technique is simple, but requires practice. When you feel the emotional surge, pause for 3 full breaths before speaking. In that pause, you're not suppressing the emotion. You're creating space between the trigger and your response. You're allowing your prefrontal cortex, the reasoning part of your brain, to come back online. Because when emotions spike, that reasoning center goes offline, and you need it online to lead. During those 3 breaths, you can do a quick mental check. What am I feeling? Anger, fear, disappointment? Name it. Then ask, what do I want to create here? Resolution, understanding, change. That question shifts your brain from reactive mode to purposeful mode. And in that shift, you reclaim your power. Some leaders find it helpful to physically ground themselves before difficult conversations. Plant your feet flat on the floor. Feel the connection to the ground. This isn't metaphysical nonsense. It's a neurological technique that signals safety to your nervous system. When you feel grounded physically, you communicate with more stability. Another practical strategy: before entering a difficult conversation, write down the 3 most important points you need to make. Just 3. This prevents you from dumping everything you're feeling in an emotional flood. It keeps you focused. It keeps you clear. You walk in knowing exactly what needs to be said. Everything else is extra. And here's a technique that very few people use, but should. Before the conversation, visualize it going well. Not perfectly, just well. See yourself staying calm. See yourself speaking clearly. See the other person actually hearing you. This mental rehearsal primes your brain for composure instead of conflict. Athletes do this before competition. Leaders should do it before difficult conversations. The second rule: go into difficult conversations with a clear goal. Don't enter them just to vent. Don't enter them to win. Don't enter them to prove you're right. Enter them to resolve something, to create understanding, to move forward. When you have a clear goal, your words stay focused. You don't get pulled into side arguments. You don't take bait. You stay on track. Before the conversation, ask yourself, what do I want to walk away with? What does resolution look like? What outcome would actually help? Then structure your words around that goal. Everything you say should move you closer to it. The third rule: speak to the issue, not the person. When conversations get heated, people make it personal. They attack character instead of addressing behavior. They say you're lazy instead of this work didn't meet the standard. They say you're always negative instead of this pattern of complaint isn't helpful. When you make it personal, people get defensive. And once they're defensive, they stop hearing you. But when you focus on the specific issue, the specific behavior, the specific pattern, people can actually engage. They can respond. They can change. So choose your words carefully. Stick to facts. Stick to what happened. Stick to what needs to happen differently. Leave the labels and judgments out of it. The fourth rule, stay calm even when the other person doesn't. This is hard. When someone raises their voice at you, every instinct says raise yours back. When someone attacks you, every instinct says defend and attack harder. But that's how conversations spiral into nothing productive. Leaders break that cycle. When the other person gets loud, you get quieter. When they get emotional, you get calmer. When they start attacking, you stay focused on the issue. Your calmness becomes an anchor. It pulls the conversation back to solid ground. It shows that losing control won't work with you. And over time, people stop trying it because they know it won't land. The fifth rule, listen more than you talk. Most people go into difficult conversations with their speech prepared. They're so focused on what they're going to say that they don't actually hear the other person. And when you don't hear them, you can't resolve anything. So listen. Really listen. Not just to respond, but to understand. What are they actually saying beneath the words? What are they afraid of? What do they need? When you listen first, you gain information. And information gives you power to speak in ways that actually land. The sixth rule, acknowledge before you correct. If someone is upset, don't immediately tell them they're wrong. Even if they are, acknowledge their feeling first. I hear that you're frustrated. I understand this has been difficult. That acknowledgement doesn't mean you agree. It means you're not dismissing their experience. Once they feel heard, they'll be more open to hearing you. But if you skip acknowledgement and go straight to correction, they'll dig in. They'll fight harder, because now they're not just defending their point. They're defending their right to feel something. The seventh rule, be direct, not harsh. Say what needs to be said. Don't dance around it. Don't sugarcoat it. But also don't be cruel. There's a difference between your performance has been below standard and we need to address it, and you're failing at your job. Both are direct. One is professional and focused on improvement. One is personal and destructive. Leaders can deliver hard truths without destroying people. Because the goal isn't to hurt, it's to help, even when helping means saying uncomfortable things. The eighth rule, don't let silence intimidate you. Sometimes in difficult conversations there are long pauses, uncomfortable silence. Most people rush to fill it. They keep talking just to avoid the tension. But silence can be powerful. It gives people time to think, time to absorb what was said, time to form a real response instead of a reactive one. So when silence comes, let it sit. Don't be afraid of it. Your comfort with silence shows confidence. It shows you're not desperate for approval or agreement. You're just stating what's real and giving them space to process it. The ninth rule, know when to walk away. Not every conversation needs to be resolved in one sitting. If emotions are too high, if progress is stopped, if it's going in circles, it's okay to pause. Let's take a break and come back to this tomorrow. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. Forcing resolution when both parties are exhausted rarely leads to real solutions. It leads to temporary agreements that fall apart later. Better to pause, reset, and come back when both people can engage clearly. The 10th rule: follow up after. Difficult conversations don't end when the words stop. Leaders follow up. They check in. They make sure the issue is actually resolved. They hold people accountable to what was agreed on. Because if you have a tough conversation but never follow up, people learn that your words don't mean anything. Holding difficult conversations without losing composure is a skill. It's not natural for most people, but it can be developed. Practice staying calm in small, tense moments. Practice pausing before you respond. Practice speaking to issues instead of people. Practice listening deeply, even when you disagree. Each time you do this, you build the muscle. And over time, difficult conversations become less difficult. Not because the content gets easier, but because you get stronger. Your composure becomes your foundation. And that foundation allows you to lead even when things get hard. Because leadership isn't tested in easy moments. It's tested when stakes are high, emotions are strong, and the easy path is to lose control. That's when real leaders show up, calm, clear, composed, and that's when respect is earned. Chapter 8. Give feedback that creates change instead of resistance. This is one of the most important communication skills a leader can develop, because feedback is how people grow. It's how teams improve. It's how standards are maintained. But most feedback fails, not because the information is wrong, but because it's delivered in a way that creates defensiveness instead of openness, resistance instead of change. Bad feedback makes people shut down. Good feedback makes people step up. And the difference isn't in what you say. It's in how you say it. Leaders understand this. They know that feedback is a tool. And like any tool, it only works if you use it correctly. So how do you give feedback that actually creates change? First, you give it with the right intention. If you're giving feedback to punish someone, to make yourself feel superior, or to vent your frustration, it won't work. People will sense your intent, and they'll resist. But if you're giving feedback because you genuinely want someone to improve, because you see their potential, because you believe they can do better, that intention comes through, and people respond to it. They feel it, and they're more likely to receive what you're saying. Here's a framework that works. The SBI model: situation, behavior, impact. Start with the specific situation. In yesterday's client meeting, then describe the specific behavior. When you interrupted the client 3 times, then explain the specific impact. It made them feel unheard, and we lost the opportunity to understand their real concerns. This framework keeps you factual. It keeps you specific. It keeps you focused on what can change. Compare that to you're rude to clients. That's a character attack. It creates defensiveness. It provides no path forward. Or use the gap model. Describe the current state, describe the desired state, and collaborate on closing the gap. Right now, your reports are getting submitted late and missing key data. What I need is reports submitted by Friday morning with all required sections complete. What's getting in the way of making that happen? Now you've defined the problem, set the standard, and invited them into the solution. Another effective approach: the forward focus model. Instead of dwelling on what went wrong, focus on what needs to happen next. Moving forward, here's what I need from you. This doesn't ignore the past, but it doesn't get stuck there either. It puts energy into the future, which is the only place where change can happen anyway. The key in all these models is staying behavioral and factual. You're not guessing at motivations. You're not attacking character. You're describing what you observed and what needs to change. That's feedback people can actually use. Before you give feedback, check your why. Why am I saying this? Is it to help them or to hurt them? Is it to build or to break? If your why isn't clean, don't speak yet. Wait until it is. Second, be specific. Vague feedback is useless. You need to do better tells someone nothing. Your report lacked data to support your conclusions. Next time, include at least 3 sources for each major claim. That's specific. That's actionable. That's useful. When you give specific feedback, people know exactly what to change. They're not guessing. They're not left wondering what you meant. They have a clear path forward. And clarity creates action. Third, focus on behavior, not character. Don't say you're careless. Say you missed 3 important details in this document. Don't say you're not a team player. Say you didn't respond to the team messages for 2 days, and that delayed the project. When you focus on behavior, people can change it. When you attack character, they defend it. And once they're defending, they're not listening. So keep it behavioral, keep it factual, keep it fixable. Fourth, balance correction with recognition. If all people ever hear from you is what they're doing wrong, they'll stop trying. They'll give up, or they'll leave. But if you also acknowledge what they're doing right, they'll stay engaged. They'll keep pushing. This doesn't mean fake praise. It means real recognition when it's earned. You handled that client issue well. Now let's work on improving your response time. That balance keeps people motivated while still pushing them to improve. Fifth, deliver feedback privately. Don't embarrass people in front of others. Don't call them out in meetings. Don't make them feel small publicly. That creates resentment, and resentment kills progress. Handle correction privately. Handle praise publicly. That's the rule. When people know you'll protect their dignity even when correcting them, they trust you more, and trust makes feedback effective. 6. Give feedback soon, not late. Don't wait 6 months to tell someone they've been doing something wrong. By then, the behavior is a habit, the damage is done, and the person will wonder why you didn't say something sooner. Give feedback close to the event, while it's fresh, while they can still remember the context. That makes it easier to process and apply. 7th, invite their perspective. Feedback shouldn't be a one-way lecture. After you've shared your observations, ask them what they think. How do you see this situation? What do you think got in the way? That opens dialogue. It makes them part of the solution instead of just a target of correction. Sometimes you'll learn something you didn't know. Sometimes they'll have a valid explanation. Sometimes they'll take ownership without you having to push. Either way, inviting their perspective shows respect. And respect makes people more willing to change. 8th, offer support, not just critique. After pointing out what needs to improve, offer to help. What do you need from me to make this better? How can I support you in fixing this? That shifts the dynamic from boss versus employee to team solving a problem together. When people feel supported, they don't resist feedback. They welcome it. because they know you're on their side. Ninth, set clear expectations moving forward. Don't just tell someone what was wrong. Tell them what right looks like. Going forward, I need you to submit reports by Thursday at noon. They should include data, sources, and a clear recommendation. That clarity gives them a target. And when they have a target, they can hit it. 10th, follow up. Don't give feedback and then disappear. Check in, see if they made the change. Acknowledge when they do. Hold them accountable if they don't. Feedback without follow-up is just talk. Follow-up is what makes it real. Finally, remember that how you give feedback reflects your leadership. If you're harsh, people will fear you. If you're vague, people will ignore you. If you're inconsistent, people won't trust you. But if you're clear, respectful, and focused on growth, people will respect you, and they'll work harder to meet your standards. Giving feedback that creates change instead of resistance isn't about being nice. It's about being effective. It's about delivering truth in a way that people can actually hear and use. It's about caring enough to correct and skilled enough to do it right. Master this, and you'll build stronger teams. You'll develop better people. You'll create a culture where feedback is welcomed, not feared. And that culture will drive performance in ways that fear never could. Chapter 9. Speak to be remembered long after you've left the room. This is the ultimate test of leadership communication. Anyone can make an impact in the moment. But can you make an impact that lasts? Can you say something that stays with people days, weeks, months later? Can you speak in a way that changes how someone thinks even after you're gone? That's the goal. Not to be heard in the moment, to be remembered long after. And that requires a different level of intention, a different level of care, a different level of craft. You want your words to stay with people long after you've left the room. To be remembered, you have to say something worth remembering. That means cutting out the shallow talk. Don't speak just to react. Don't speak just to show off what you know. Speak because you've got something solid to share, something that helps, something that shifts thinking, something that sparks a decision, something that leaves the listener better than they were before they heard you. That kind of speech requires thought. You don't wing it. You don't talk just because it's your turn. You speak when you have something that matters, and when you do, you deliver it with strength. But let's get specific about what makes words memorable. It's not complexity. It's simplicity with depth. The most memorable messages in history were simple statements loaded with meaning. I have a dream. Ask not what your country can do for you. Be the change you wish to see. These aren't complicated phrases. They're simple words arranged in powerful ways. What makes them stick? First, they're concrete. They paint pictures. They create images in your mind. Abstract concepts fade quickly. Concrete images stay. So when you want to be remembered, speak in pictures. Don't say, we need to improve communication. Say, we need to stop talking past each other and start actually hearing what's being said. Second, memorable messages often use contrast, before and after. Old way versus new way. What is versus what could be? Contrast creates clarity. It helps people see the gap. It makes the message stick. Most people wait for perfect conditions. Leaders create them. That contrast between waiting and creating makes the message memorable. Third, Memorable communication often includes a challenge, not an insult, a challenge, something that makes people rise. You're better than this. You know what you need to do. Stop waiting for permission. These challenges stick because they speak to something people already know but haven't acted on. You're giving voice to their internal knowing. Fourth, use repetition strategically. Not annoying repetition where you say the same thing 10 times. Strategic repetition where you come back to a core phrase at key moments. This is who we are can be used to open, to reinforce, and to close a message. That repetition creates rhythm, and rhythm creates memory. Fifth, end with something quotable. Your last sentence should be strong enough to stand alone, something people could write down and remember. Your voice is your power. Use it. Leadership isn't given. It's taken. Speak like you mean it, and mean what you speak. These ending statements create anchor points in memory. Your voice is your signature. People won't always remember every sentence you say, but they'll remember how you made them feel. They'll remember if you made them stop. They'll remember if you gave them a standard. They'll remember if your words helped them break out of delay, confusion, or fear. That's what being remembered is about. It's not about entertaining. It's about elevating. Speaking to be remembered starts with being clear about what you believe. People remember conviction. They remember certainty. If you're unsure, your message will fade. But if you speak from what you live, from what you know, from what shaped you, it sticks. You don't need to speak louder. You need to speak real. That's what cuts through the noise. You don't need perfect sentences to make impact. You need truth. Raw, tested, real truth. You need a message that's simple but strong. Don't complicate what should be clear. Don't try to sound impressive. Say it how people talk. Say it how people think. Say it so they can carry it with them into their day. The easier your message is to repeat, the more powerful it becomes. Because people won't just hear it, they'll share it. And that's how your voice begins to travel. Your words should live in someone's mind long after the moment has passed. They should echo in their decisions. They should challenge their excuses. They should remind them of what matters. You don't get that kind of result by being passive. You get it by choosing every word on purpose. You get it by respecting your message enough to say it right the first time. You get it by being bold enough to say what others are afraid to say. And the truth is, people are hungry for words that mean something. They're tired of fake inspiration. They're tired of surface-level talk. They're tired of vague advice. They want clarity. They want power. They want someone to say what they've been thinking but couldn't express. They want someone to speak to their future, not their comfort. That's your role. You fill that gap. You give them the words they didn't know they needed. Being heard is about presence. Being remembered is about purpose. You have to know why you're speaking. What do you want them to walk away with? What shift are you trying to create? What decision are you calling them toward? If you're not clear on that, you'll speak in circles. You'll end up using 10 sentences when one would do. But if your message is sharp, your delivery becomes automatic. You won't have to force impact. It'll be built into your words. You don't need a stage to speak with meaning. Every conversation is a chance to be remembered. Every message, every meeting, every moment where people are listening, That's your opportunity. That's where your leadership grows. And it grows fastest when you stop trying to sound good and start trying to speak truth. Real truth. No performance, no fluff, just solid, honest communication. Make your sentences clean. Make your message simple. Make your presence strong. That's how you build a voice that matters. That's how people start repeating your words to others. Not because you asked them to, but because it stuck, because it hit, because it was real. Don't be the kind of person people forget 5 minutes after the meeting ends. Don't be the one who fills time with empty talk. Be the one who shifts the room with one clear sentence. Be the one who changes the atmosphere, not with emotion, but with authority. Be the one whose message stays in someone's head when they wake up the next morning. That's what leadership communication does. It doesn't fade. It lives on. And it's not about fancy language. It's about strong delivery. It's about knowing your words have weight and treating them that way. Don't waste your words. Don't repeat yourself. Don't speak in circles. Don't go off track. Stay on message. Make it land. Make it matter. Even in casual conversation, speak like someone who respects their voice. Speak like someone who knows their message could be the thing that lifts another person out of a low place. Speak like someone who's built their beliefs and lives by them. That's what people remember. That's what people trust. Don't try to impress. Try to impact. Impressing fades. Impact lasts. If you speak from your truth, your life, your experience, people will feel it. They'll pause, they'll think, and they'll remember. Every time you speak, you're planting seeds. Some grow fast, some grow slow, but they grow if the message was real. So stop trying to say more. Start saying what matters. Say it clean, say it strong, and then say no more. Let it echo. Let it settle. Let it live. That's how you speak to be remembered. That's how your voice becomes something people hold on to. That's how you lead. Not with noise, but with words that last. Chapter 10. Train your voice daily until it leads naturally. That's the discipline most people overlook. They want to sound strong when it matters, but they haven't practiced in the quiet. They want to lead with authority, but they haven't built the habit of speaking with intention. If you want your voice to guide others, to influence, to create impact, you have to train it like a skill. Not sometimes. Not when it's convenient. Every single day. Because leadership doesn't show up out of nowhere. It's built through repetition. You don't become powerful by accident. You become powerful on purpose. Your voice is a tool. The more you sharpen it, the more precise it becomes. The more you use it with awareness, the more it adapts to your intention. But if you speak without discipline, your voice loses structure. It becomes reactive. It gets shaped by emotion instead of clarity. That's why the work happens in the daily conversations, the regular moments when no one's watching, when it's just you and your reflection, when you're explaining your thoughts, speaking up, correcting something, guiding someone, or simply holding your tone steady. That's the training. That's where the strength is built. If your voice only sounds firm when you're calm, but falls apart when things get uncomfortable, then you haven't trained it enough. If your message is only clear when there's no pressure, but turns into rambling when you're questioned, then it hasn't been tested enough. Leading with your voice means you've developed it to a point where it holds up in any room, under any pressure, around any person. That doesn't come from theory. That comes from showing up daily and doing the work to improve how you speak, how you deliver, and how you connect. Start by being intentional every time you talk. Be aware of how you sound. Are you speaking too fast? Are you using filler words? Is your tone matching your message? Are your sentences clean? It's not about being perfect. It's about becoming aware. Awareness is what leads to growth. And the more you notice, the more you improve. Speak like it matters, even when it's casual. Speak like you're leading, even when it's one person. Speak like someone who owns their voice, not someone hoping it lands well. You don't need a stage to train your voice. You need discipline. You need consistency. Practice during your phone calls. Practice while giving feedback. Practice when making requests. Say what you mean. Speak with purpose. Cut the excess. Stay present in your tone. That's the grind most people avoid. They wait for the big moment, the big opportunity, thinking that somehow they'll rise to the occasion. But if you haven't trained, the pressure will expose you. It won't bring out your best. It will reveal your gaps. And you can't fix those in the moment. You fix them ahead of time, when nobody's watching, when you're building strength behind the scenes. Here's a daily training routine that builds leadership voice. Start each morning by speaking your intentions out loud. Not in your head, out loud. Today I will communicate with clarity and strength. Today I will speak to create value, not to impress. This isn't affirmation nonsense. It's priming your brain for intentional communication. Before each meeting or important conversation, take 60 seconds to prepare. What are the 3 key points I need to make? What tone serves this conversation? What outcome am I creating? This brief preparation prevents rambling and keeps you focused. During conversations, catch yourself using weak words. Each time you notice, I think, or maybe, or sort of, mentally note it. You don't have to fix it in the moment. Just notice. Awareness is the first step to change. After important conversations, do a quick review. What went well? Where did I lose clarity? Where did my tone waver? What would I do differently? This reflection turns experience into learning. Without it, you just repeat the same patterns forever. Weekly, record yourself having a conversation or giving a presentation. Listen back with fresh ears. You'll notice patterns you never hear in real time. The filler words, the upspeak, the rushed pace, the lack of pauses. Hearing yourself is uncomfortable but invaluable. Monthly, get feedback from someone you trust. How do I come across when I communicate? Where am I strong? Where could I improve? Most people never ask these questions. Leaders ask them regularly because they're committed to growth, not comfort. Your voice is a reflection of your thinking. If your thinking is clear, your words will follow. That's why training your voice also means training your mind. Get used to thinking in simple, strong statements. Train your thoughts to focus. Eliminate the clutter. Discipline your internal language, so your external communication becomes sharper. That way, when it's time to speak, you're not building clarity on the spot. It's already there. You're simply letting it out. You also have to get comfortable with silence. Part of training your voice is learning when not to speak. The pauses matter. The stillness between your words carries presence. Most people are afraid of silence. They rush to fill the gap. But if you've trained your voice, you understand that silence is part of your strength. It gives your words time to breathe. It lets your message settle. It shows you're in control, not just of what you say, but of when you say it. You can train tone just like you train physical posture. Speak with a grounded tone. Not too high, not too soft, just steady. You're not trying to sound like someone else. You're finding your real voice, the one that holds authority without needing to raise volume, the one that speaks directly without hesitation. You develop that through practice, through repetition, through saying things out loud until your voice learns what strength feels like. It's not just about what you say. It's how you say it. Your delivery matters. If your voice shakes, people notice. If your words drag, people disengage. If your tone sounds unsure, they question your message. But if your voice is trained, it becomes effortless. It becomes natural. People don't even notice you're leading. They just follow because you've built a rhythm, a tone, a presence that guides without demanding. Training your voice also builds confidence. Not fake confidence, but earned confidence. The kind that comes from repetition. You know what you sound like. You know how to stay calm under pressure. You know how to make your point without getting lost. That self-trust shows up in your speech, and people feel it. They may not know exactly why they listen to you. They just know they do, because your voice tells them they can. There will be days you don't feel strong, days when you're tired, days when you're unsure. That's when your training carries you. That's when the habits you built kick in. You don't have to fake strength. You've already practiced it. You've spoken with clarity when you didn't feel like it. You've held your tone when it would have been easier to fold. That's the power of training. It builds consistency, so your leadership doesn't depend on your mood. It depends on your preparation. You can't build a strong voice by avoiding hard conversations. You build it by walking into them, not with arrogance, with intention, with composure. You don't raise your voice to get attention. You raise your standard, and when you speak, that standard comes through. People hear the difference. They hear the work behind your tone. They hear the thought behind your message. They hear the truth behind your delivery. That's what makes your voice lead. When you train your voice every day, you stop trying to lead. You just lead. It becomes part of who you are. You don't think about tone. You live in it. You don't think about structure. It flows naturally. You don't second-guess your words. You speak from alignment. That's the goal. Not to impress, not to perform, but to be so practiced, so grounded, so consistent, that leadership shows up without effort. And don't forget, your voice is part of your character. The way you speak reflects what you've built internally. If your words are honest, your tone will be steady. If your message is true, your delivery will be strong. If your purpose is real, your presence will follow. But all of it must be trained. No shortcuts, no pretending. Just daily work, daily progress, daily clarity. One sentence at a time, one conversation at a time, one adjustment at a time. That's how your voice grows. That's how your presence deepens. That's how your leadership becomes undeniable. Not because you said the most, but because you trained the most. Because you respected your voice enough to build it every day. Until one day you speak and people follow. Not because they were told to, because they wanted to. Because your voice didn't push, it pulled. Because it didn't perform, it guided. Because it didn't shake, it led. And that's when your voice becomes more than words. It becomes influence. It becomes power. It becomes leadership. This is not the end. This is the beginning. You now have the framework, the principles, the techniques. What you do with them determines everything. Will you apply them? Will you practice them? Will you commit to training your voice daily until leadership becomes your default mode of communication? The choice is yours. But understand this, the world needs leaders who can communicate with clarity, strength, and purpose. Leaders who can move people through words. Leaders who can create change through voice alone. That leader can be you, if you're willing to do the work, if you're willing to train daily, if you're willing to own every word. Your voice is waiting. Your leadership is waiting. It's time to speak like you mean it. The time is now.